Welcome back, Nurglings. Today we are taking a look at the military might of the Beastmen. But before we start, be sure to comment, like and subscribe so you don't miss an update. And so did the fair village of Sternberg come under the hateful, greed-filled gaze of the beast. These foul beasts were intent on the spilling of blood, the burning of houses, and the butchery of all. Mayhap they wish to gather foodstuffs and drink, but I believe this beyond their bestial intellect. A night of terrors and tragedy it was for the people of Sternberg. Creatures of violence and destruction, the Beastman race is as unreasoning and deadly as the hurricane that tears apart the village, the plague that ravages the land, or the blight that kills the harvest. Yet somehow the Beastmen are far worse, for they have little to do with the natural order of things. The carnage and despair they spread across the land is not part of the eternal cycle of life and death, but a malevolent and deliberate attempt to tear down and despoil everything of beauty, peace, or sanctity, replacing it with filth and ruin. Even when gathered in their torrid encampments, the Beastmen can be seen brawling, shouting, rotting, drinking, or filling their hairy bellies with raw flesh. They are vital and virile creatures that are never truly still. When it comes for the Beastman hordes to launch their invasions upon the lands of mankind, the herds gather around a single holy site and form themselves into large hordes called war herds. From here, all the chieftains of the tribes challenge each other for the right to lead the herd into battle. Once a leader is chosen, the brave shamans of all the tribes conduct ritual sacrifices to their loathsome gods. Smelling the spilling of fresh blood, minotaurs, centaurs, and all manner of chaos creatures are seen joining the Beastmen on their hunt. As daylight nears, the ritual begins its final climax. From the shrouded tree line, the atonal droning of war horns sound, accompanied by the dolorous, arrhythmic pounding of mighty drums made from the flayed skins of defeated foes. Soon, massed figures emerge from the mists, and the horde becomes visible in all its terrible glory. The tactics employed by the Beastmen are not the practiced drills of many other races, but the inherent guile of a pack of wild animals stalking and encircling its prey. They sense weakness and smell fear, surging forward for the kill and falling upon their prey in an orgy of butchery. The coming of the horde is always presaged by a cacophonous braying, as if to amplify their already deafening war cries. The Beastmen employ war horns fashioned from the tusks of forest creatures or the horns of slain rivals. They carry a bewildering array of banners adorned with the heads of fallen enemies and daubed with the crude runes that identify each herd. Such banners are used to increase the Beastmen's stature, ensuring that even distant enemies can see the dominance and strength of the bearers. At the centre of the horde are heavily armoured elite bestigors, equipped with huge axes taken from the treasures stacked at the base of each herdstone. These Beastmen hack into the enemy as farmers scythe down their wheat. They will fight to the death to take the banners of their foes, trampling enemy standards into the mud as the bulk of the horde follows in their bloody wake. All the while the Gore and Ungor stalk through the undergrowth to encircle and hem in the enemy battle line, moving into the most advantageous positions before springing effective ambushes upon the flanks and rear of the enemy army. Many a gunnery or archer battalion has believed itself safe behind sharpened stakes and defensible positions, only to find that the Beastmen had them surrounded from the start. Alongside the war herd come the Minotaurs, driven to such extremes of violence by the scent of blood, they cannot wait until the day is won to feast upon their victims. They gorge themselves on the flesh of their dying foes, even as battle rages all around. The beasts of the wild come too. Above the battlefield, ragged flocks of harpies screech and squabble over the remains of the dead. Twisted chaos spawn thrash and writhe as the raw power of chaos surges through their veins. Even larger creatures accompany the horde, terrifying cygors, rock-clad giants of the forests, and bloated, betentacled things that lurk within the forest bogs and can swallow men whole. When the herds form up for battle, it is not as small, ragged bands, but as fully armed and battle-ready armies, united by the will of the chieftain. The sight is sufficient to strike terror into even the bravest warriors, for such a menagerie of horrors can consume all before it. Once a beastmen horde is on the warpath, nothing short of total annihilation will stop these foul creatures. The beast lords of the war herds are hairy, muscle-bound brutes, possessed of a raw and savage might. Upon the battlefield, a beast lord is a force of untold destruction, gouging and butchering with horn, blade and claw. Their thick, hairy skulls are crowned with magnificent sets of horns, as sharp and hard as any blade, and their robust and heavily thewed bodies are covered with scar tissue and crudely rendered tattoos. Each beast lord has many charges. These wargor are the leaders of the war herds, but they give no regard to the concerns of their tribe. They care not how their underlings are fed or how disputes are settled. The only thing the wargor concern themselves with is battle. Day and night they brood and plot the myriad ways they will enact their race's hatred of man, the violence they will wreak upon his flesh, and the defilement they will heap upon his temples. Doom bulls are the strongest and most ferocious of their kind, towering bull-headed and cloven-hooved beasts, almost as broad as they are tall. Consumed by blood greed, the doom bulls will lay waste to their prey in orgy of slaughter, maiming everything within reach of their gargantuan axes. Gore bulls are the lesser leaders of the Minotaur tribes. Although no less terrifying in combat, they stand a full head or more over the largest Minotaurs and are more than capable of carving a path through the enemy single-handedly. Great Bray shamans are the practitioners of magic within a war herd. When the beastmen go to war, the great Bray shamans wield their powers to wreak terrible devastation upon the foe. Their coruscating magic transforming soldiers into hideous new forms, summoning the creatures of the forest, both large and small, to bite and rend, or driving enemy mounts to buck their riders to the ground, to gore and trample their masters. The great Bray shamans' less able underlings are the Bray shaman. They are born into magic, and they wield it with an instinctive ease. A miasma of fell sorcery surrounds them, and when their wrath is roused, reality itself distorts and bends to their will. The Bestigor are the strongest and meanest of all the war herd's foot soldiers, and are prone to acts of excessive violence. In battle, Bestigors form a solid, armoured mass of muscle and iron that charges forward, huge axes levelled, ready to hew the foe limb from limb and trample his broken body beneath their unshod hooves. The Minotaurs, also known as Bulgors, are massive bull-headed monstrosities that constantly hunger for blood and meat. Twice the height of a man and substantially more muscular, their horns can eviscerate with a single thrust. When called to war, Minotaurs charge with a thundering impact and hack apart their hapless victims with formidable weapons. The Gore form the great mass of the war herds. Their appearance varies, but all combine bestial features with those of a man. They have the savage fangs of a wolf and muscular bodies, both well suited to enacting the violence and warfare that they crave. To face a horde of Gor is to face anarchy and mayhem. Rowdy and undisciplined, they bray, bark and bawl, an unceasing cacophony that fills the hearts of men with dread. The Ungor are more dexterous than the Gor, and possessed of a wiry strength that makes them more than a match for humans. They live to murder and despoil all that is wholesome, and are extremely cruel and spiteful creatures. Ungor take to the field in large herds, arming themselves with stout spears with which to impale their prey, and crude shields to protect their grotesque bodies. Meanwhile, Ungor raiders are those tasked with the role of hunting out enemies for the war herds to prey upon. They have knowledge of the wilderness that is unsurpassed by even the most intelligent Gor, and it is they who sow the seeds of mayhem that soon blossom into full-blown destruction as the rest of the war herd falls upon their victims. The lowest of the low, even the Ungor look down upon the Brays for their lack of horns and status among the war herd. They rarely live long, being the very last to get fed. The Brays take their name from the braying, whinnying, whooping cacophony they make when they band together to eat or kill. Upon the thermals of the sacrificial pyres soar the harpies, winged beasts with savage beauty. They are creatures of cruel temperament, that is for sure, for flocks of harpies delight in tormenting their victims and feasting upon raw flesh. Centaurs are drunken, jealous creatures and carry out extreme acts of cruelty and violence on the battlefield. Each centaur carries either a crude spear or horn and wears limited amounts of chainmail and cloth, while their shields and decorations display both skull and chaos motifs. Rising up from their clawed hooves, their muscular torsos lead to a cruel-looking head from which protrude large ribbed horns. The chariots of the beastmen are ramshackle constructions built from heavy pieces of lumber, scavenged from the ruins of man's buildings, drawn by boars or other fouler monstrosities whose brute strength and ferocity far outmatch that of mere horses. A beastman chariot inflicts terrible damage as it charges into the foe. Brutish and bloodthirsty beasts, the warhounds of chaos are tireless hunters built of little more than muscle and fang. On the battlefield, the beastmen release these feral beasts to intercept the forward elements of the enemy army. Packs of chaos warhounds will hunt down and pounce upon enemy skirmishers and scouts, bearing them into the ground and ripping them to pieces in their desperate desire to kill. Chaos spawn are creatures which have become so mutated through their servitude to chaos they have devolved into twisted and insane abominations. Those seeking immortality and power through demonhood face the constant possibility of being reduced to chaos spawn, either by accumulating too many mutations or being cast aside by their chaos patrons as unworthy. The children of chaos. Some of the most disturbing sights upon the battlefield are the cavorting children of the beastmen, some born to the beast women, whilst others given up by their human parents. They prance and play amidst the chaos of battle, often herded by matronly beast women. War herds based suitably close to the mountains may be fortunate enough to entice dragon ogres down from their slumber with the promise of battle. These ancient and powerful beasts reside in the remote peaks of the old world, and only the fiercest fighting and the mightiest of storms can rouse them. Jabberslaves are some of the most ancient creatures of the world, and are certainly the most vile. They're an unwholesome union of toad, sludge drake and insect, a creature so unearthly and grotesque that even the clearest of nature's pools will never reflect that abomination. Sentient creatures fare even worse, with many humans known to die of sheer shock or madness that the appearance of this creature invariably induces. Bellowing primitive war cries from maws crammed with rotten, jagged fangs, the Chaos Giant tribes lumber to war, corrupted by the hideous powers they worship. These beings are twisted perversions of their former selves, monsters dedicated to the killing for chaos. Well, that's just about all I have for you today. Be sure to tune in next time for some more wargaming content. Thanks very much for watching. Peace.